In this lesson, we're going to talk about the biggest transaction you'll probably ever deal with for most of you in your entire life. That's buying a home. By the end of this, you should understand some of the pros and cons of home ownership. You'll be able to tell when you're ready to buy a home or not, and you'll know some key steps to follow if you do go through the process of purchasing a home. First of all, why would you buy a home? Well, pride of ownership is a big deal. You hear realtors say it a lot, but it's very true. Taking pride in something as big as a home purchase means a lot. Your quality of life will probably go up because you own it and you take care of it, and you don't have to have neighbors sharing walls with you like in an apartment complex. You do have some distance in most cases between you and your neighbors. Buying a home is a protection against inflation. When prices go up, home prices go up. You at least own a huge asset that rises with inflation in almost every case. Appreciation, it will gain value over time in most cases. Now, we just went through a huge bubble that burst in terms of inflated home values, but guess what? Values are a little bit more reasonable now and they're rising again. So over the long haul, real estate does appreciate in value. There's no guarantee of that, but you look at the history of it, and even despite bubbles, it does go up over time. Buying a home gives you very predictable payments. Your landlord can raise rent on you anytime the lease is up. It makes you more stable because once you have a home, you really need that job to make that home payment. Okay, so it tends to have your employment be a lot more stable as well. Now, you do get significant tax breaks. A lot of young people don't understand this, but your mortgage interest on the loan, if you borrow, like most people do for their home, that mortgage interest is deductible. Your property taxes are deductible. If your home goes up significantly, as most homes do, if you've lived in it 2 of the last 5 years you've owned it, you get to take up to $250,000 for a single person or up to $500,000 as a married person without taxes. That's right, without taxes. So owning a home has some tremendous benefits, and it also forces you to save money. I think one of the best benefits of all, freedom. You're not listening to a landlord. You get to post things on the wall. You get to expand the home if you want to. You landscape it however you want. You get to park your car in the garage or in the driveway, wherever you want to. It's your choice. You own it. And ownership is a key to wealth building in America. All right, there's lots of articles out there about why people buy homes and lots of articles about why people don't. Okay, you can find people say, I don't want to own a house again. If you can't save money, you shouldn't borrow a huge amount of money. That's probably true. And there's some people say you shouldn't. This is very popular right now, that talk about not owning a home. A lot of this is because we just went through that bubble. Okay, in 2014, houses are starting to come back, but they do depreciate, especially if you bought at the peak of the market. Okay, so be careful about timing. You do take on significant debt, okay, but understand that that debt is tax deductible. You're basically buying a huge asset with somebody else's money, the bank or the lending company. All right, so if the home appreciates, your property taxes do go up. That's another expense, reason not to buy a home, but your value is going up. Okay, so that's a good thing. The value is going up. You do pay a little bit more in taxes if your property value rises. You do have repairs and maintenance. These normally fall on the landlord. So if you got a house that requires a lot of repairs, yeah, that can be tough. If you have a job opportunity in another state, yeah, if you own a home, you might be stuck here if that's what you decide to do, but you can always rent the home in most cases. So some of the advantages and some of the disadvantages here of buying are listed here. Some of the advantages and disadvantages of renting are listed here. Notice with renting, you got no control over rent increases. Yeah, I hope you guys don't get evicted, but you're not building any equity. That's value. That's value to you is what equity means. There's no tax benefits to renting. And even if you buy, you're going to build some equity over time because you're paying down the loan, regardless of what, well, not regardless, but property values tend to rise. You have this sense of community, stability, and security. All of these benefits, I believe, outweigh the possible detractions. Besides, the average home price in Placer County is about $375,000. You're going to take on ownership of a $375,000 asset if you have the average house in Placer County. And most people, the vast majority of people, are doing it with somebody else's money. Yes, you got to pay it back. Yes, there's charges for interest, but interest rates have been low for over a decade now. It's cheap to borrow money, and real estate is a very good way to build wealth. It's not for everybody. There are costs involved, there are responsibilities involved, but it is a great way to build wealth. When you're deciding, this may be years down the road for you, when you get out of college and you're working for a couple of years, how much can you afford? Well, generally they consider about a third of your gross income is a common estimate for a common home payment. So keep that in mind. If you're not staying for 5 years or more, probably not a good idea to buy a house. You want to get pre-qualified for home loans, see how much you can afford with your income and with your other liabilities like a car loan or anything else. And your credit score, this FICO score, means a lot. We'll talk more about that in Unit 3, but you've got to have good credit if you're going to get a good loan rate. You got to save enough for a down payment. I do recommend getting 20% down. A lot of times parents help with that. A lot of times you can still get loans without 20% down, but be careful. You pay more for those loans and they can bite you down the road if you're not careful. You do need to consider 3 to 6% of the sales price of the home for closing costs. Okay, realtors do make some money and there are fees to escrow companies. Be aware of that, but it's usually well worth the price. Okay, obviously you've got to find a great realtor, somebody who's going to work for you, somebody who's going to honor your requests and your limitations on what you can buy. So change realtors if you don't like the one you've got. All right. When you're shopping for a home, couple things. Location, location, location are the first three rules of real estate. Is it in a good neighborhood? You can't change the neighborhood. You can change your house and your landscaping and all that, but you can't change the neighborhood. Are the schools strong? A lot of places in Roseville have very good schools, so keep that in mind. And most important of all, it sounds silly, but sometimes people buy homes thinking it's an investment. They buy homes because their parents wanted them to. You've got to like it, if not love it, because you're going to be with it for a while. All right, want to shop around, okay? Look at a lot of homes and talk to a lot of lenders. Keep an eye on loan rates and fees because once you make an offer on a home, it usually goes into what we call escrow for at least 30 days, and loan rates can change. You'd love to get a cheaper loan rate if the rates go down. So talk to your lender about that, and your realtor can also help you with that. Okay, a lot of first-time home buyers get programs. There's incentives. They help you with the down payment. They'll get you better rates. So look into these things. The city of Roseville has them. The city of Rockland has them. Sometimes there's federal programs. So keep in mind, there's a lot of incentives for people who are shopping for homes, especially if you're a first-time buyer. You want to understand that process. Meet with your realtor and ask lots of questions. Don't be afraid to make a counteroffer if the other person, the selling person who's selling the house, doesn't like your first offer. You can make another counteroffer. Okay. If you do get into escrow, meaning they've accepted your offer and the home sale is going to go through, hire a very thorough home inspector. I recommend you pay this person and not the realtor. The realtor wants to close the deal and get his commission. You pay the home inspector. Even if you paid $350 or $500 and this guy found some flaws in the home that the realtors didn't tell you about, you've saved yourself some major headaches. Pay a person to go over that home with a fine-tooth comb and check everything. Negotiate your fees. These are often negotiable and you are the buyer. You are the customer. If you're getting a great deal and your realtor can convince you that, maybe the fees aren't worth working on. But in most cases, you should ask about every fee and ask what is negotiable and what's not. Okay, focus on the big fees. There are some big numbers in the escrow process. There's some small numbers in the escrow process. Look at the big numbers first and try to understand those big dollar amounts and negotiate whatever you can. Okay, let's take a look at some numbers here. Here's a home in West Roseville, all right, close to some of the high schools, probably some of you are going to. Let's say it was a $250,000 sales price. That's a little bit low. I don't think this home would go for that low, but suppose you came up with 20% down. That's $50,000. That's like a year's salary if you're making good money right out of college. So your loan amount is going to be $200,000. You probably wouldn't get this $50,000 down payment in just a year or two. You got to save up for several years. But suppose you're 30 and you can afford, you've saved up enough. 200,000 loan amount. Right now, good loan rate is about 4.5% on a 30-year fixed loan. I recommend fixed loans because your payments won't change, except for like the property taxes and insurance. Those will go up slightly, but your fixed rate loan is great because it locks in your payment for 30 years. Even renters don't get that. Rents are going to go up. All right. So if you use an online mortgage calculator, you can Google search those and you'll find them. It says about $1,230 per month for this loan amount, 200,000, 4.5% over 30 years. You're going to pay about $1,230 per month. That's just the principal, in other words, the loan amount, and the interest. Okay, but here's the thing: there's property taxes, usually 1.25% of the total home value in California. That's what the property taxes are, and you got to pay some home insurance. But most people are going to buy that anyway through renter's insurance. So your total is going to be $1,550 per month. That's a lot of dough. But here's something to think about. Okay, first of all, they call it PITI, principal, interest, tax, and insurance. $1,550 per month. That's a lot of money. Maybe I'd rather rent. But here's the deal. You're getting a lot of tax savings, usually worth $100 a month, that you won't see if you're a renter. You're buying something with that $1,550 a month as opposed to just renting. You're just giving your money to the landlord. Actually, many of you renting are buying the property for your landlord. Think about that. Okay. And by the way, if you just went straight into a 3-bed, 2-bath apartment in Roseville, what would that cost you? Well, I called 3 of them today. Cost you about the same. The low end was $1,525, about the same. Some of them went up almost to $1,700. So the cost is similar. And if you look at further analyses here of others who've done the same thing, they're looking at a much more expensive home, $400,000. Read the fine print here. These people only came up with $14,000 down payment, just 3.5%, nowhere near the 20% down that we had. They're assuming a higher interest rate. They're assuming homes are only going to go up 2% over the next 5 years. That's really low for California. And they're only assuming that rents are going to go up 2% every 5 years. That's not true. They're going to go up much higher than that. They're assuming you're in a 28% tax bracket, but either way, look at their analysis. At the end of just 5 years, 60 months, you're going to gain $84,000 in value, and you will have paid out $126,000 to your landlord. That's just money down the drain, or actually money to your landlord. So you do the math here. Minus 126 plus 85,000. That's a net difference of over $200,000. Okay, so take a look here. You're going to have this much money sitting on your books, and you could sell the house and capture that money, or you could borrow against that money and go get a new car if you wanted to. I don't recommend that, but this is equity in your house, and that's a good thing. Okay, so lots of analyses have been done on this. In most cases, it makes sense to rent, but decide for yourself. One of the best articles I read here was this guy said, "You're absolutely insane if you don't buy a house when you're young." I like this article. He's very thorough. I recommend reading it. Just follow that URL. But there's other people who say, "I don't want to own a house again." They're tired of the repairs. They wanted to get out of it. I'm not sure what her reasons are, but decide for yourself. But seriously consider home ownership. It can be a huge decision and a huge benefit that adds to your wealth in many, many cases. But it's not for anyone. Okay? Decide for yourself.